I used to think love was a sequence of ordinary things done on purpose. Wake before your alarm, grind coffee. Text good morning, remember her favorite salad dressing. Buy the glue sticks before the drawer is empty. You stack 1,000 small choices until they look like a life. 3 years with Sarah felt like that, steady, unflashy, hours. We met during senior year at a campus volunteer fair. She was recruiting for a literacy program. I was there for the free pizza and stayed because she made Wednesday at 4 sound like the best hour of the week. She spoke like she'd already lived 5 lives. I learned fast that loving her meant keeping pace and keeping calm. We moved into a narrow apartment above a bakery that opened at 5 a.m. The place smelled like sugar and ambition. The landlord called it cozy. Friends called it a shoebox. We called it home. I built shelves out of pine and YouTube tutorials. She labeled glass jars with a chalk pen and started a windowsill herb garden that never quite thrived but refused to quit. On Fridays, we split a pizza and our fatigue. On Sundays, we walked to the park and pretended we were the kind of people who always had fresh oranges in the fridge. There were signs I learned to ignore. The phone flipped screen down when certain names lit it. Happy hours that stretched into networking. New outfits that didn't match our budget. Still, she always came back smiling, and we fell asleep to budget podcasts and the bakery's mixer humming through the floor. The sentence landed on a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that blends into the next unless you split it with a knife. She came in late, hair still smelling like the rooftop bar her team liked. She didn't drop her bag or kiss my cheek or ask about my day. She stood by the window and started pacing like she'd memorized the route. "I've been thinking," she said. "People rarely announce good news that way." "I love you," she went on, "but I'm too young to be tied down. I need to explore my options." The word explore did a lot of work in her mouth. It was adventurous without being specific, bold without being honest. Options sounded like she was shopping for shoes, not rearranging the furniture in my head. I set down the spatula and turned off the burner. "You're saying you want to date other people." "I'm saying I don't want to regret not trying," she said carefully, like the right phrasing could make the shape of it less sharp. "We're 25. Most people don't lock in at 25. I need to see what's out there. I don't want to hurt you, I just don't want to lie." I could have fought. I could have asked the usual questions. Is there someone specific? How long have you been feeling this? Do you still love me? But there's a dignity in not volunteering to be convinced. She knew what she wanted. That deserved clarity, not courtroom debate. "Explore away," I said. She blinked. That wasn't the script. "That's it?" "That's it," I said. "You're right. You shouldn't lie. And I won't live like a placeholder." Her shoulders dropped. Relief mingled with confusion. It looked like she'd trained for a wrestling match and got handed a resignation letter instead. "Maybe we'll circle back," she offered, "when I'm ready." "Maybe," I said, but I meant no. She moved out 2 days later. We split the couch and the plant she could keep alive. I kept the shelves. She took the chalk pen and wrote "Be brave" on the last jar like it needed a blessing. She left her key on the hook and a dent in the pillow. The bakery mixer still hummed the next morning. The coffee still tasted willing, but the room had a new outline. For a month I treated my evenings like a job, get through them without breaking. I ran the same 3-mile loop until my calves ached and my brain unclenched. I cleaned the baseboards. I fixed a dripping faucet that had been auditioning for a solo for months. I learned that silence is loudest at dinner. I stopped opening social media after I scrolled past. A photo of Sarah in a dress I hadn't seen and a smile I recognized, captioned with 3 words that looked expensive. City night things. My friends tried soft entries. "Let's grab wings." "Come to trivia." "She wasn't your oxygen." I went sometimes and stared at the laminated menu like it held instructions for breathing. At week 6, the ache lost its teeth. At week 9, I laughed at something dumb and didn't feel guilty about it. At week 12, my boss asked if I'd consider a lateral move into operations, and I said yes because saying yes to anything wholesome felt like a way to move forward. I enrolled in a weekend woodworking course taught by a retired contractor who smelled like cedar and told every story twice. On Saturday mornings I woke early without resenting the sun. Then came the small wins. A photo I took at the river sold to a local magazine for $50. I benched my old Macs at the gym like a petty victory. I fixed a neighbor's broken drawer and got paid in blueberry muffins and gratitude. I replaced our balcony herbs with hardy succulents that asked less and gave more. 6 months passed like chapters you've already read. Familiar, but with new margin notes. That's when I saw her again. It wasn't cinematic. No rain, no dramatic music. Just a Saturday farmer's market where the tomatoes outshone the flowers and everyone had a tote bag that said something about sustainability. She stood by the peaches, turning one in her hand like a decision. She spotted me. She didn't look away. "Jake," she said, and my name sounded like a question she hoped would still be answered. "Hey, Sarah. You look good." People say that when they're trying to measure whether you healed without them. "So do you," I said, and it wasn't untrue. She looked sharper, thinner at the edges, like someone who'd been edited. We did the small talk, work, weather, her mom, my sister. Then she shifted her bag and slid in the line I knew was coming. "I've been thinking," she said, the same opener, new chapter. I was stupid. I didn't find what I was looking for. I'm ready now. I want us. If you're willing. Old me would have exploded with relief. Old me would have offered terms and timelines and a diagram of my heart. New me remembered Tuesday night. Remembered the sound of that word explore bouncing around our kitchen. Remembered how her promise to return when ready required me to pause my life and wait for her calendar. "Sarah," I said, not unkind, "I don't need you anymore." Her eyes widened like a window thrown open in winter. "You don't mean that." "I do," I said. "I needed you when I didn't know how to be alone. I learned. I'm okay. Better than okay." Tears pressed against her mascara. "I made a mistake." "I agree," I said. "We make different ones from here." She reached for my arm like a reflex, then let it drop. "Can we at least talk? Not now. Later. Coffee, something." "I don't think that's a good idea." The sentence wasn't revenge. It was a boundary finally being spoken in the language it deserved. She nodded too fast. "Right, of course, sure." Then she turned, bumped someone's basket, apologized without looking, and walked away holding her peaches like proof she still knew how to pick the ripest thing in the room. I stood there with a bunch of cilantro and a feeling that was not triumph. It was steadiness. It was the understanding that affection doesn't require access, and history doesn't obligate a sequel. I went home and made tacos. I chopped the cilantro too fine and laughed by myself when it stuck to the knife. I put on a playlist without skipping the songs that used to be ours. I sat on the balcony and watched the bakery clerk carry a bag of flour on one shoulder like a medal. The city breathed, and so did I. The chaos didn't start until Monday. First came a text from a mutual friend. "Heads up," Sarah posted. Then screenshots, a caption about second chances and some people holding grudges. Comments that said, "Men are so fragile, and he'll come around." DMs from numbers I didn't save. "You owe her a conversation. Be mature." A long paragraph from her sister that began with, "I'm disappointed," and ended with, "You were family." Then Sarah called. Then she called again. Then she left a voicemail that began with tears and ended with anger. "You said explore," she reminded me, as if a single word granted her immunity from consequence forever. "You encouraged it. Now I'm ready, and you're being petty." I saved the message and didn't answer. I made a list because lists keep me from reacting like a fool. The list had 2 columns, what I could control, what I couldn't. Under couldn't, I wrote, her posts, people's opinions, the narrative. Under could, I wrote, my silence, my peace, my work, my sleep, my response, or lack. By afternoon, someone had sent an email to my boss expressing concern about my emotional stability. He called me into his office, closed the door, and said, "I don't care about your personal life. I care about Q3. You good?" "I'm good," I said, and showed him last week's numbers instead of a screenshot. He nodded. Then let the internet do what it does. On Wednesday, Sarah waited outside my building. She didn't shout. She looked small and hopeful and determined not to be. "Please," she said, "talk to me." So we talked. On the bench by the bus stop where pigeons run meetings. She apologized better this time. She owned the word explore. She said the quiet part out loud. I wanted excitement without cost. She asked if we could try again. I told her the truth. I'm not mad. I'm finished. That should have been the end. But people don't like endings they didn't choose. On Friday, someone keyed a line in the paint on my truck. On Saturday, my landlord forwarded an anonymous complaint about late-night visitors that didn't exist. On Sunday, my mother called to ask if I'd really left that girl crying in the street. I told her I left her on a bench after a conversation two adults had with their mouths and their inside voices. Mom sighed the sigh parents keep for when they love you, but never expected to have to defend your boundaries to the church group. By the second week, the noise began to recede. People get bored. Outrage has a shelf life. But Sarah didn't stop. The posts turned vague, then poetic, then bitter, then gone. She deleted them or archived them, or realized the internet is a bad pastor when you're looking for absolution. I didn't clap for the quiet. I just noticed it and got back to work. The chaos didn't hit like an explosion, it rolled in slowly, like a tide that keeps rising until you realize you're already knee-deep. At first, I thought ignoring Sarah's online drama would make it burn out. I underestimated how fast gossip spreads when people are bored, and a story has an easy villain. Within days, mutual friends were forwarding screenshots, co-workers were whispering in the break room, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Apparently, I was now the heartless guy who abandoned his girlfriend after she tried to make things right. She'd told everyone she was ready to grow up, and I refused to forgive. Never mind that she'd left me to explore her options. Details like that don't trend. At work, the noise followed me. One afternoon, I was in the copy room when my colleague Jenna said, "So your ex went viral on TikTok." She showed me her screen before I could decline. There was Sarah crying softly into the camera, talking about learning lessons in love. The caption read, "When you realize your soulmate doesn't wait forever." It had 500,000 views. I took a slow breath. "Yeah," I said. "That's me. The soulmate." Then I tossed my coffee cup and got back to the quarterly report. But ignoring the storm doesn't stop it from raining. Her followers started commenting on my public pages, messaging my photography account, even tagging me in duets. I got DMs that ranged from pity to fury. "She deserves better. You're trash." At least she was honest. Josh came over one night and scrolled through the chaos, shaking his head. "Man, she's doing a PR tour on your heartbreak." "Let her," I said. "I'm not auditioning for her sequel." Still, I archived my social media for a while. I wasn't hiding, I just didn't want my piece dragged into her storyline. Then, about 2 weeks later, she showed up. Not a text, not a call. She appeared in person, outside my workshop, wearing that same perfume that used to mean comfort and now meant memory. "Jake," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound rehearsed. "Can we talk?" I wiped my hands on a rag. "You've already told the world, Sarah. What's left to say?" She looked hurt, but she didn't back down. "I didn't mean for things to go that far. I wanted to explain. I wasn't trying to hurt you." "You were trying to control the story," I said. "And you got attention instead." She stepped closer. "Please, can we sit down just 10 minutes? Against better judgment, I gestured toward the bench outside the shop. She sat. I stayed standing. "I was stupid," she began. "When I said I needed to explore, I thought I'd find excitement, passion, something more. But every guy I met wanted a version of me that didn't exist. I kept comparing them to you. No one measured up. That's when I realized I made a mistake. And when I came back, I thought maybe we could start again." I studied her. She wasn't lying, at least not entirely. Regret clung to her voice. But regret isn't the same as love. It's just nostalgia with better lighting. "Sarah," I said quietly, "you left to see if the grass was greener. It wasn't. That doesn't mean you love me. It means you're scared of being alone." Her jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "It's honest." Tears filled her eyes. "You really don't feel anything anymore?" I sighed. "I did. For a long time. But feelings need trust to survive. You broke it, and that's okay. It happens. But don't ask me to rebuild something you burned because you're cold now." She stood, frustration replacing sadness. "You've changed." "That was the point," I said. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. For a moment, the only sound was the buzz of a streetlight and the steady hum of the evening traffic. Finally, she whispered, "I'll go." I nodded. "Take care of yourself, Sarah." I thought that would be the end. But pride doesn't vanish quietly. The next week, she started messaging our mutual friends again, spinning new versions of the story. Now apparently I'd emotionally manipulated her, ghosted her, moved on too fast. She posted quotes about men who pretend to heal but are actually hiding guilt. It was a masterclass in victimhood, and people ate it up. At first I was angry, not because of the lies, but because it was working. She'd turned our breakup into content. My name became a subplot in her redemption arc. So I did something that truly shocked her. I didn't defend myself, I didn't post a rebuttal, didn't argue in comments, didn't text mutuals. I just kept living. Within weeks, the noise began to die down. Her followers got bored. Her posts stopped performing. And when she posted one last forgive me video that flopped, she deleted the whole account. Meanwhile, I started gaining clients for my photography business. People who discovered my work through all the chaos, but stayed because they liked the art. Ironic, really, her drama ended up promoting my piece. Months later, I heard through a mutual friend that she'd moved to another city, started therapy, and was trying to find herself again. I wished her well, silently, but the real twist came at a wedding. Not ours, Josh's. He'd asked me to shoot the photos, and I almost said no, but I'm glad I didn't. That night, while everyone danced under string lights, a woman named Hannah, one of the bridesmaids, asked me to take her picture. She smiled, natural and unguarded. No filters, no angles. "You're good at this," she said. "I've had practice," I replied. We talked for hours after that, about life, choices, and how sometimes losing what you thought you wanted is the only way to get what you need. I didn't know then that Hannah would become something more. But I did know this: revenge doesn't always come dressed as karma. Sometimes it looks like peace. Sometimes it looks like the life you build quietly after someone else tries to wreck it. Sarah had her chaos, I had my calm, and calm won. By the time spring came around again, Sarah had become more of a memory than a wound. There were still faint reminders: her old mug at the back of the cupboard, a playlist buried deep in my Spotify, a photo that popped up on a memories notification, but they didn't sting anymore. They just existed, like old postcards from a trip I'd outgrown. I'd spent enough nights staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, wondering if I should have said something different. Now I just wanted to live without the weight of what if. So I threw myself into my work. Photography started as therapy, but it was becoming something more. Clients booked me for weddings, engagements, even magazine spreads. People liked how I captured real moments instead of posing them. I figured that's what heartbreak teaches you: how to see the truth behind faces. Hannah, the bridesmaid from Josh's wedding, had quietly become part of my world. It started simple: coffee after the wedding, then texts about random things, then a routine. We never labeled it. It wasn't a rebound. It was two people figuring out how to exist comfortably beside each other without pretending. She had this calming energy. She didn't demand attention. She just had it. If Sarah was a storm, Hannah was a sunrise. Steady, warm, effortless. About 4 months into whatever we were, she invited me to her art exhibit. I didn't realize she painted until that day. The gallery was small, filled with the smell of acrylic and ambition. Her work wasn't flashy. It was intimate. Soft blues and golds, brushstrokes that looked like emotions trying to find language. "You don't paint people?" I asked as we walked through the exhibit. She smiled. "No, people move too much. I like painting how they make me feel instead." I nodded, staring at a piece that looked like sunlight bending on water. "And this one?" "That one," she said softly, "is what peace looks like after pain." I glanced at her, and for a moment, I forgot the room was full of people. She didn't say it for effect. She said it like someone who'd lived it. That night, as we left, she asked, "Does it ever bother you? What happened with her?" I knew who she meant. "It used to," I admitted. "But now it's just part of my story, not the headline." She smiled. "Good. Don't let her be the villain forever. That gives her too much power." She was right, and I didn't realize how much I'd needed to hear that until then. Life, as it tends to, moved forward. I moved into a bigger studio space downtown, started hosting small workshops for photography students. My business grew faster than I expected, and for the first time, I wasn't chasing stability, it was chasing me. Then one afternoon I got a message that yanked me straight back into a past I thought I'd buried. It was from Sarah. "Hey Jake, I know this is unexpected. I saw one of your photos in the paper. Congratulations on everything, I mean that. Also, can we talk, please? One conversation, no drama." I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no anger this time, just curiosity. I didn't owe her anything, but closure isn't always about the other person. It's about proving to yourself that the wound really healed. So I agreed to meet. Public place, broad daylight, no expectations. We met at a coffee shop downtown, the same one where we used to argue over who made better playlists. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked tired, not physically, but emotionally. The energy that used to fill every room she entered had dimmed. She smiled nervously as she sat down. "Hey," she said quietly. "Thanks for coming." "Sure," I said, calm. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, stirring her coffee, though she hadn't added sugar. "I've been in therapy," she said finally. "I've been trying to understand why I blew up everything good in my life. Turns out I was chasing validation. I thought freedom meant doing whatever I wanted, not realizing it also meant living with the consequences." I stayed quiet, she continued. "I've been thinking about us a lot," she said. "Not because I want you back. I know that ship sailed, but because you were the only person who treated me like I already was enough, and I threw that away." Her voice cracked a little. "I'm sorry, Jake, for all of it. The lies, the gossip, the drama. I was angry that you didn't chase me. I thought it meant you didn't care. But I get it now. You were choosing peace, not punishment." I nodded slowly. "Took me a while to understand that too." She smiled faintly. "You look happy. I'm glad. Truly." "I am," I said. And for the first time it felt completely true. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "There's something I wanted to return. I found it when I was cleaning." Inside was the keychain I'd given her when we moved in together. A small camera charm with the word "us" engraved on it. The metal was scratched, the letters fading, but it hit me how much distance sat between who we were then and who we were now. "Keep it," I said. "It's part of your story, too." Her eyes glistened. "You're still too kind." "No," I said. "I'm just done holding grudges." We talked for another 10 minutes, about small things. Her new job, my studio, how mutual friends were doing. When she left, she hugged me briefly, softly. It didn't hurt anymore. That night, Hannah came over. I told her about the meeting, every word. She listened without jealousy or judgment. When I finished, she said, "You did the right thing." "I didn't do it for her," I said. "I did it for me." "I know," she said. "That's why it worked." She stayed the night. We watched an old movie, shared popcorn, and laughed at all the wrong parts. The world outside could have ended, and I wouldn't have noticed. A few months later, I got a wedding inquiry through my website. The name caught my eye. Sarah's best friend, Amanda. I hesitated before replying, but professionalism won. I said yes. When I showed up at the rehearsal, Sarah was there, maid of honor. Our eyes met across the aisle, and for the first time, there was no tension. She smiled politely. I nodded. That was it. No awkward conversations, no lingering stares. During the reception, I caught her dancing with a guy, a tall, quiet-looking man. She laughed the way she used to, genuine and free. For a moment, I thought, good, she found peace too. Later that night, as I packed up my camera, Amanda approached me. "Thanks again for doing this," she said. "You're really good at what you do." "Thank you," I said. She grinned. "You know, it's kind of poetic. Sarah's old love capturing her best friend's new beginning." I chuckled. Life's weird like that. And it was. When I got home that night, Hannah was waiting on the couch, reading one of my photo books. She looked up, smiled, and said, "Hey, stranger, how was it?" "Strangely peaceful," I said, setting down my camera. Like everything came full circle. She laughed softly. That's what closure feels like. I sat beside her, and for a while, we didn't speak. The kind of silence that doesn't demand filling. Then she said, "Do you ever wonder what your life would have looked like if she hadn't left?" I thought about it. The late nights, the fights, the waiting, the uncertainty. "Yeah," I said. "But I think I would have missed out on all the parts that made me who I am now." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Then it was worth it." I smiled. Every second. Outside, the city buzzed softly, lights flickering against the night. Somewhere out there, Sarah was probably laughing again, maybe even dancing under the same moon. I hoped she was happy. I really did. Because for the first time since she'd walked out of my life, I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even thinking about revenge. I was just free. And that, I realized, was the best kind of ending a story like ours could ever have.